Daily Dose. My name is Robert. I'm here with Dr. Val Okianis. We're friends by this point. I got to say it. I like this talking the way we're doing because when we relationship build, to me, not just in the Parkinson's world, but anywhere community wise, I think we become better. And we both, when we're heard and we hear others, that back and forth, you talk about complete sleep, that we build complete relationships. And that's a lot of what I felt at the All In this year. I really want to give gratitude to PMD Alliance for putting together a very interesting conference, of which you were one of the presenters, you and Larry. Talk to me about the value of, you got to share, but you also got to hear. I know you got feedback. There were people coming up to you afterward. What is that feeling of being seen, being heard, and also hearing others? Because that's different. The one-on-one is beautiful in the office, but you got to engage a large group and they got to engage you. What was that like for you?
No, that's a great question. So the topic was sleep with Larry. I got to talk about how it is for not only for patients but also for caregivers. So being on stage and afterwards, all the questions was like I felt like I was relating to what everybody felt. But somehow I don't want to say they weren't heard, but it's a topic that is not discussed. Topic of sleep, I mean, is not discussed with their providers and they're struggling, or sometimes it's not discussed just because they don't bring it up, just because they don't know that it's related to Parkinson's. So, like, why should I talk about sleep? I'm here to talk about my tremor. Like I'll go to a sleep doctor if I have to. So, I think that a lot of the questions were also related to, hey, I do this, and you're right, you pointed this out. So, how do I? So, it was a lot of like, aha for them as an aha moment that what you're saying relates to us. And now I see that it's relative to Parkinson's, and I have to bring it up to my movement specialist doctor. And what is usually something that always comes up in my office or whatever I do, I present on sleep, is REM behavior disorder, where patients um, and people don't realize as much as that's why we need to raise awareness, don't realize how important it is to treat, to recognize, and how much this is related to Parkinson's disease and neurodegenerative disorders. Um, and it's not a nightmare. It's not a hallucination. It's
Mhm.
something specific that we know, and it's called REM behavior disorder. And so I really like these questions that the patients had from the audience. And it was a topic that they were very, very interested in.
Well, here's the thing. We put out sleep as this big blanket idea, following the bed metaphor, I suppose. But within sleep, like you said, there are several layers and understandings of what it means. I mean, one of the things that I've heard, because I did go to a sleep specialist somewhat recently, and the term was clean sleep. And I really like that idea about the environment that one does for setting up in terms of, limiting screen time, maybe limiting caffeine, having a routine and a regular time to tap into your circadian rhythms to get that complete sleep. These are all things that seem entirely controllable, and yet many people, not just people with Parkinson's, they struggle with them. And like you said, the care partner, the effect, right? He or she or they may be having their own issues with sleep, and then they're dealing with their person with Parkinson's too. So it's
And
it's
they don't sleep, the care partners don't sleep, the caregivers. And then they can't care for their
no.
partner because they're exhausted. One thing I always find very interesting, I read this somewhere, that um, humans, are the only mammals that control the initiation of sleep or delay their sleep, actually,
Mm.
voluntarily. So we do that to ourselves. We sleep deprive us by screen time, by activities around bedtime. We resist bedtime for some reason. We're almost like kids wanting to stay later and later and later and find excuses. Oh, I'm going to watch the next channel, whatever.
Yeah.
So we have, if we knew better, we would just turn everything off about an hour or two before the desired bedtime and just do some sedating and very relaxing activity before we go to bed.
It's from a media perspective, because that's a big part of my background. What you just said really rang in an interesting way. When, TV was more of a public service as opposed to just a, money grab that it is now. It did turn off. TV used to end, at
Long
11,
time
12
ago.
o'clock, right? Yeah. And they'd put on the national anthem and that would be it, and go to bed because there would be snow. There was this idea that no, I mean, you're going to bed. And now, I mean, the 24-hour cycle, which, from a media perspective, really kicked into high gear in like the early 90s. You're right. That would be an interesting study to do, is to see about, sleep, I guess, problems or awareness from the early 90s or so, when the prevalence of media took off into a 24-hour cycle, versus what did that do to our circadian rhythms. Ooh, let's see if we can get some research money for that. I can't thank you enough for your time. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want to cover? We could do another episode. I want to make sure. It's just a pleasure speaking to you.
Yes, I want to talk a little bit about the how do we treat them? How to
Let's
treat
come
the
back.
disorders.
Good. You hang out then. How do we treat them? That's our next episode. Okay. We'll see you on the next dose.